Okay, so thank you again for stopping in. And if you know me, if you watch this channel for any, significant length of time, you probably know I love Akasha. I was big into Akasha. I loved the way Aaliyah portrayed her. I think it's an amazing story of what we would call the first vampire. And her vampiric story is very different than any other vampire stories that you will hear because she was once a royalty. She was once a queen. She was born in Sumeria or Mesopotamia at least, and married the king of Kemet, and that's how she became royalty. And the backstory, of course, is that they were fighting to stop cannibalism. Like cannibalism was still very prevalent during this time, not just for the purposes of feeding of nutrients. It's that they thought you could inherit knowledge through the act of eating someone, particularly their brain. And this was something that people did in reverence of their own ancestors. If you had a mother who was powerful, in fact, the two witches, Makasha, and the other witch, the two sisters, were doing that practice on their mother. Their mother, of course, had been a very powerful and knowledgeable witch. After she passed, it was their ritual to consume her flesh to, hopefully absorb that knowledge and her powers. Obviously, we'd be completely against that practice now, and Akasha was, and her husband were at that time as well. So that's why she ran afoul with them, and there's been a lot made of that particular story, an interesting story. But effectively, they summon a demon. I think the demon is Enlil, and Enlil. I'll have to look up the demon again, but he actually infects her. So when they kill her because she gets assassinated, and this demon had been harassing her for probably months prior to that at their beckoning. So finally, at the time of her death, as her spirit is leaving her body, right, this demon attaches itself to her and goes back into the body, so reanimates the body. And this was kind of a blood ritual, so she becomes possessed of this bloodlust. So a very powerful spirit now that has her possessed, and she gets a whole host of the original vampiric powers. And that's why you'll see Akasha with powers that other vampires don't have in terms of her pyrotechnic ability, telekinesis, linked to other vampires, flight, speed. Like, she has a host of powers that go beyond what we would typically see for vampires, right? She was known for obviously being strikingly beautiful, which is why we portrayed her with this very lovely actress, Aaliyah, who has become synonymous with this character with her long ebony hair. And this was always done in the style of ancient Kemet, the way that she was dressed, with the gold and the lavishness about her. But she was truly a presence that was both royal during life and became royal and otherworldly as she passed on. Now, interestingly, is that her abilities are far-ranging because at her core, she possesses the ability to practice blood magic, or what we would describe as blood magic. And blood magic gives her a host of abilities, from controlling other vampires, creating other vampires. Like, she literally would run vampires who were anything that was beneath her, inferior to her. She had complete mastery of it. And she was really she became more like almost like godlike figure, or at least empowered with godlike abilities, becoming a true immortal. She could conjure flames, so pyrokinesis. She could incinerate people or large groups of people. This was a part of with a mere gesture. So this is one of her most potent weapons. Overall, I rank her at a 6, which is very high if you've been paying attention to this ranking scale. I usually put a god, like any divine figure, an angel, would be at a 5. But because of her additional abilities, she has the ability to affect the world on a mass scale, right? She could literally suck the world dry, which is what the mythology of her really was. So one of my favorite characters, I love Akasha. Really want to get into more detail about what her abilities were, how she would rank against, other entities or beings that we will, put on this list. But one of my favorites. If you have more that you like to add to the story of Akasha, please do so in the comment section. And as always, I'm going to ask you to hit that like and subscribe.